Welcome everybody to your TV news. We are in 1865 and a lot of issues happened in this year. For example, the end of the Civil War and the assassination of Lincoln. Here we are going to see our partner Mateo in the place of the issues. Mateo, go ahead.
Hello Viviana, I am here in the place of the issues. As you can see, the President Lincoln was with his wife. They were in a theater when suddenly a man came from the back and shot him. And some people tried to help him, but it was too late. He died. Meanwhile, the realistic period began to represent things without artificial and artistic elements. Also, the Third Amendment was established, and with it, all the slaves were free.
Now we are in 1866 and two main issues happening this year. The first one is that the Congress published the Civil Rights Laws, where all inhabitants of the Union were ruled by the same laws. And the other issue was that the reconstructions begin. What happened? The states of the South could join the Union.
What?
Now let's go to 1868, where African Americans got the right to vote. Let's go with the music.
Hello, Viviana. Explain me more about President Johnson was impeached and the 14th Amendment gives African Americans the right to vote. Here we have some African Americans buried already.
What?
In 1886, the Statue of the Liberty was dedicated by the French to the United States. This statue is 93 meters and is located in the south of the Manhattan Island. And this statue was constructed to commemorate the independence day of the United States. Going to 1898, the Spanish-American War began. Let's go with Janiris and she's going to explain us what's happening.
Okay.
Thank you, Viviana. European territory was fighting against North America in order to own Central American colonies, but unfortunately Spain lost. Here there is a picture about the end of the war.
Begin. It was a literary movement that emphasizes on the observation and the scientific method to portray the reality that was happening. The founder of this movement was Emile Zola, and also with Thomas Hardy. In 1900, the naturalism began. It was a literary movement that emphasizes on observation and scientific methods to portray the reality. Emile Zola, as we can see the person right here, was the founder of this movement, with some others like Thomas Hardy, Theodore, and more.
Holidays are coming, holidays are coming. 'Tis the season, watch out, look around, something's coming, coming to town, coming to your town. Holidays are coming, holidays are coming, holidays are coming. 'Tis the season, watch out, look around, something's coming, coming to town, coming to your town. Always coming to your town. Something magic in the night, can you see it shining bright?
Then the trucks came over the hill.
There's a feeling in the air as the city streets are turned into a winter wonderland. All the trees are shining.
Okay, hello. Now I am going to explain some main authors of this period. The first one is he. His name is William Dean Howells. He was born in 1837 and he died in 1920. He created the first theory for American realism. In 1891, he became the editor of Harper's Monthly in New York City. Then we have Edward Bellamy. He was born in 1850 and he died in 1898. He wrote the most famous American utopian novel, named Looking Backward. Then my partner Emilsen is going to explain you some other main authors of this period.
Thank you, Matthew. I am going to talk about Stephen Crane. He was born in 1871 and died in 1900. He was the first American naturalist. He became famous with the novel Maggie, a Girl of the Street. This novel was published in 1893. Besides Stephen Crane, we have Hamlin Garland. He was born in 1860 and died in 1940. He was a social person and a writer. And one of his most important books was Travel Road.
Now we are going to continue with the Lost Generation. Around 1914 and 1918, there were a group of American writers that emerged during the World War I. Let's go with
Bosnian Serber. Thank you, Viviana. According with your information, in June 28, 1914, Archduke Francis Ferdinand was murdered. This led to the First World War. This fact happened when Francis arrived to Sarajevo, where 7 young Bosnian Serbers planned to assassinate him as he drove along the main road in Sarajevo with his wife. One of the conspirators tried to kill him, throwing a bomb to his car. Then he escaped hurt, but then he was assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, who finally shot him. Archduke and his wife.
In November of 1916 took place the elections where the following parties participated: the Democratic, the Republicans, and the Socialists. And finally, Wilson was the one who won. Let's go with more information with Mateo.
Okay, as my partner said, the Democratic, Republican, and Socialist Party, when the Democratic Party won with 277 votes, following by the Republican Party with 254 votes. Woodrow Wilson represented the Democratic Party. Wilson was held by his slogan, "He kept us out of war." Before this important event, there was another important, that was the First World War. My partner Emilsen is going to explain this more.
Thank you, Matthew. I am going to mention the main causes of the First World War. They were nationalism, imperialism, militarism, and alliance system. It is well known that the Great War left death everywhere. It is said that there were over 17 millions of deaths, most of them soldiers, and besides millions of wounded. Once the World War I ended, came the Great Depression. It took place in 1929, and my partner Janiris is going to explain this event.
Regarding with Emilsen, It was a worldwide economic depression that lasted over 10 years. It was also well known as Black Tuesday. With this event, employment reached 25%. The Great Depression ended in 1932 when President Franklin Roosevelt was elected and began to create federal government programs.
After the First World War and the Great Depression ended, people began to save money. At that time, they didn't have a job. And after the industry and factories, they start to grow. And the national debt grew to $260 billion. Also, people were getting jobs more easy because of the industrialization. After the First World War and the Great Depression ended, people began to save money. They didn't have any job because of the First World War, and the industry and factories then started to grow. The national debt grew to $260 billion, and because of the industrialization, people were getting jobs. In terms of literature, we are going to listen to Mateo, that's going to give you more information about authors and what happened at that time.
Hey, think of all that we could do if we started with me and you. And I'll keep coming back around. Hey, some things will never be explained. Summer's calling out 1,000 names, and I'll keep coming back around. I'll keep coming back around. Wait a while and then you'll see. It all started with you and me. Oh, wait and you'll see. I'll keep coming back around. I'll keep coming back around. I'll keep coming back around.
Okay, now talking about the literary contents, I'm going to explain two important. The first one is the existentialism, that was a term linked to philosophical thought of human being as human subject. It was not merely a thinking subject, but also have in mind the acting feelings. The second one is the absurdism, that is a type of philosophy based on the belief that the universe is irrational and meaningless. This led the individual to be in conflict with the universe. Now, Emerson is going to explain you more about. Now, Emerson is going to explain you some authors of this era.
Well, the most important authors of this time were Ernest Hemingway and Albert Camus. Ernest Hemingway was born in 1898 and died in 1961. He was famous by his book, The Sun Also Rises, which was written in 1926. This book portrays a group of young adults in the post-war era living in Paris. Ernest Hemingway was was also famous by his book The Old Man and the Sea. Another important author is Albert Camus, who was against totalitarianism, and later he rejected also communism with his book The Rebel, which was written in 1951.
In 1959, the national civil movement was growing in the city of Birmingham. The aim of this movement was to end the system of segregation everywhere. On the other hand, Martin Luther King delivers the well-known speech, "I Have a Dream," on the Washington Mall.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom reign. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
In 1964, the President Johnson announced the Great Society, where everybody was free. Also, the Congress authorized the Civil Rights Act to ensure that everybody could vote, and also to have access to the public accommodation.
In 1968, black people got many rights. One of them, and the most important, was that the black people were able to vote. Then, in 1967, the first black to serve in the Senate was Edward Brooke since Reconstruction. Then my partner Emilsen is going to tell you how Martin Luther King was killed.
Well, Martin Luther King was killed by James Earl Ray while Luther King was standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. And in 2008, the first black president, Obama, was elected. Okay, my partner Janiris is going to introduce the main authors of this time.
Yes. Thank you. Well, now I'm going to introduce the main author of this era. The first was Audat Equino, that was the first black American to write an autobiography. Then Jupiter Hammond was a poet and a slave on Long Island. He wrote a religious poem. Then Lucy Terry, that was the author of the oldest piece of African American poem. And Harriet Jacob, that wrote his life in slavery. Now, my partner Viviana is going to explain you the post-slavery era.
William Edward was one of the authors who was born in 1868 and 1993. He was one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement to the Colored People. Another author was Frederick Douglass, who was born in 1818 and died in 1895. He was an author, journalist, also was an abolitionist, a statesman, and autobiographer. He wrote one of his main books was the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, and also he was one of the most influential African American texts of the era. The last but not least, as we can see here, she's a woman, and she is Phyllis Wheatley. She was born in 1753 and he died in 1784. She was the first African American writer and the second woman who published a book in the colonies. Also, she was one of the first writers to use an epistolary style. Now, this is everything for today. I hope you enjoy all the news we present you and have a good night.